Hi, my name is Morgan, and today we're going to be sharing an actual play of Masks, A New Generation, created by Brendan Conway and published by Magpie Games. Masks is a tabletop role-playing game about teenagers with superpowers learning the ropes and discovering how to be heroes. It uses the Powered by the Apocalypse engine, an easy-to-learn system that only requires 2 six-sided dice to play. I've run this game for players age 8 and up. It's a great role-playing game for young or first-time players. This game focuses on team building and character development. During character creation, players choose a playbook which represents a superhero archetype from comics and film. The Masks core book has 10 playbooks. The first is the Beacon. The most human, least super of the playbooks, the Beacon's greatest powers are tenacity, diligent practice, and just plain luck. The Beacon represents characters like Hawkeye, both versions. The Bull. This hero can punch their way out of anything, but their tough exterior protects a tender heart. Think X-23, Runaway's Molly Hayes, or even a young Jessica Jones. Next, we have the Delinquent. They're here to cause trouble, buck authority, and have fun doing it. They're tricksters who like to pretend they don't get along well with others, but secretly love their team anyway. Kid Loki from Young Avengers is a perfect example of a delinquent. Next, we have the Doomed. Sometimes powers come at a cost. The Doomed is a tragic young hero with a dark fate ahead of them. Raven from Teen Titans is the first example that comes to mind for me when I think about the Doomed. The Janus. Some heroes live their lives in the open, but others try to keep their superpowered identity a secret so they can continue living normal lives. Kamala Khan and Miles Morales are just 2 examples of teenage heroes who want a chance to actually be teenagers, at least for a little while. Next, we have the Legacy. Some heroes are born to greatness. The Legacy is the inheritor of a title and powers from a hero who came before them. They aren't just representing themselves, but a long line of heroes with their name. Kid Flash and Green Lantern, definitely legacies. The Nova. These characters burn a little too brightly. The Nova contains an awesome power they must learn to control before they hurt someone they care about. Wiccan, Jean Grey, and Nico Minoru all come to mind. Next, we have the Outsider. They aren't from around here. Whether they came from a parallel world or another planet, the Outsider has to learn the rules of Earth culture. Not an easy task while also battling villains. This playbook covers characters like Starfire. Next up, we have the Protege. Work hard, train hard, be the best hero you can be. The Protege has been trained by a mentor, an experienced hero who has helped them become the best version of themselves. Robin and Cyclops would both fall under this playbook. And finally, we have the Transformed. Once a normal human, the Transformed was changed by their powers into something terrifying or grotesque. Even the bravest and most noble Transformed might face fear or rejection because of their appearance. Cyborg, Beast, and the Hulk are a few examples of how a once human hero can be transformed. Masks is set in Halcyon City, a gleaming metropolis with a long relationship with heroes. Our players' characters are just the newest generation in a tradition that goes back nearly a century. The citizens of Halcyon City know superheroes exist, and they take most things in stride. Robots, aliens, death rays, just a normal day in the superhero capital of the world. My players today are Donovan, Willow, and Zoe, who are now all in high school, but they've been gaming with me since they were 11, including a year-long mask campaign that we brought to a close in 2019. For character creation today, we're going to be using the fillable HTML character sheets from adventuresforhire.com, and you can find those at sheet.adventureforhire.com/masks. You can find masks, its supplements, and other handy tools for gameplay at magpiegames.com. I hope you'll enjoy our actual play and watching our heroes having fun in Halcyon City. All right. Hi, my name is Morgan, and joining me today, I have 3 of my longtime Masks players. They have played in 2 separate Mask campaigns with me. We have Willow, Zoe, and Donovan. Would all of you like to give a little brief introduction about yourself?
Hi, I'm Willow.
Hi, I'm Zoe. My previous experience in games, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition.
Yeah, Zoe is definitely one of our D&D pros here.
Howdy,
Hi,
I'm Donovan. I'm just a fun-loving guy. I like walks on the beach and also role-playing games, hence why I'm here.
All right. Okay. So today we are going to get started making some characters. So if everybody has, we are going to be using the digital character sheet that I mentioned in the introduction, because it does make the process a lot easier if you're playing an online game. And it's also nice because even if you do want to print it, you don't have to write things by hand. And I don't know about you, but if I can type something rather than write it, that's always going to be my choice. And it's a really nice character sheet to be able to use. So which playbook have you each selected for gameplay today? Willow, why don't you kind of start us off with your basic character concept?
So the player handbook that I chose was The Delinquent. And I was thinking kind of a music-loving bass player that discovered their powers in a mysterious way.
Ooh, that sounds fun. How about you, Donovan? Which playbook have you selected today to work on?
I'm gonna be using the Beacon,
Okay.
who's like you're like the Hawkeye of the group, basically. No
Yeah.
powers, and yeah, that's about as far as I have in character concept right now.
All right. Well, we can work on that together. How about you, Zoe?
I was planning on using the transformed playbook, and my idea is basically around that after a mysterious incident, I should flesh that out really, that she's been left sort of half decayed and all her powers result around changing the health of other people, whether decaying or healing them.
Oh, so kind of like a zombie reverse zombie situation?
Yeah.
That is disgusting and amazing. I am here for it. Okay, so I guess the first thing that we'll do is we'll start going through, and while usually we start with the hero name and the real name, maybe we can keep the hero name for the end as we kind of go through and work on our character concepts. So everyone who has a real name, let's take a moment and fill in your real name. Depending on the backstory of your character, it's not going to necessarily be needed to share, but just kind of go through that. And then you'll have your drop-down options for your character's look. Of course, you have your character's gender presentation, and Masks provides you with 5 different options. It gives you a pretty good range of gender presentation. We're going to move into a race and ethnicity option. Description of your eyes. Typically, you'll have a couple of interesting adjectives to go along there. Your clothing style, and then your costume style. Not all characters will have a separate costume from their day-to-day clothing, but most of them will, and I think in this case, it's likely that most of your characters will. So if everyone wants to kind of take a moment, start thinking about the look of their character, and then we will talk through the various abilities that these characters have, because we have a really nice range here of choices in terms of giving us some exciting abilities to deal with. So just give me a thumbs up when you figured out your look, and we'll do some introductions at the end of our character creation process. Got a thumbs up from Zoe. All right. It's all coming down to you, Donovan. All right, okay. So we're going to move now into character abilities, and we have 3 different sets of abilities. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a share screen here so we can take a look at the 3 different playbooks as we're going through. We have here the playbook for the Beacon, who is a non-powered character generally. Again, like Donovan said, the Hawkeye. We have the Delinquent, who has a pretty interesting assortment of, maybe a little naughty, a little unusual powers there. And then, of course, we have our Transformed, and our Transformed's powers are going to be tied into their mutated, grotesque, or strange appearance. So we're going to have, Donovan's going to be choosing 2 for his Beacon. We are going to have Willow choosing 2 for her Delinquent, and Zoe choosing 2 from the Transformed. So go ahead and make your choices, and then we will roll on in the process. Okay. And if we are good, if you've selected your abilities, we're going to talk a little bit now about the labels, because labels are a really key and important part of the game process. Labels are functionally your stats for the Masks characters. And each character is going to have 5 labels: danger, freak, savior, superior, and mundane. Danger is how dangerous you view yourself as a character. Are you a threat to others? Freak is how much do you fit in? Do people look at you and they think that you are weird, grotesque, strange, abnormal, something who doesn't fit in? Savior is your view of yourself as a hero. Are you here to rescue others? Do you save them from themselves or from danger? Superior is you are a better being than they are. You are above them. You are definitely more powerful, more amazing, smarter, faster, more brilliant. And then mundane is, you know, I'm just a regular guy. I'm just a regular guy. I'm just like you. I'm just a regular guy doing the best I can. And each of our 3 playbooks is going to start with a different set of labels that indicates a lot about the character's personality. You can see that the delinquent has a pretty high superior, while mundane for the beacon is pretty high. And then here for our transformed, your freak is quite high. And 3 is the highest any of these stats can go to. So everybody can take 1+1 to add to any of your stats, stat of your choosing. So you may choose to raise one of your negative stats up to a 0. You may choose to increase one of your previous stats. And as you can see, you've got the option here with the arrows to do so. And I'll go ahead and leave this screen up because we're going to talk a bit about conditions. Because conditions are minus to your stats that affect gameplay. If you are in a fight, if you are using your power, if you're trying to save someone, if you're trying to comfort someone and you fail in your role, you very often have a condition inflicted upon you that would be appropriate for that situation. And as you can see here, each one of the conditions connects directly to one of the basic moves in the game. If you're afraid, it impacts your ability to directly engage a threat. If you're angry, it impacts your ability to comfort or support or to pierce the mask, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Guilty, it's difficult for you to provoke someone or to assess the situation. Hopeless, it's difficult to unleash your powers. And this isn't just a simple use of your powers. This is when you go big. It's not, you know, I shoot a little laser. It's I make a huge explosion when you're unleashing your powers. And insecure is, it gives you a negative to defending someone or to rejecting others' influence. And we'll also discuss influence a little bit later. So we're going to move now into the backstory for the characters. And of course, that's going to be different for each of the characters. And we will do an intro as we get a little bit deeper into our character creation portion. So I'm just going to I'm going to stop our video for a moment. Okay, so now that we have filled out character backgrounds, we're going to keep moving down the sheet a little bit to the individual character moves. And each one of our characters is going to have a different move set. You can take a look here at the moves of the delinquent, and the delinquent gets to choose 3 of the moves from this list. Our beacon gets to choose 2 of the moves from this list. And you'll notice that a lot of the moves are references to comic book characters that you may be familiar with. Straight Up Creepin' and Come On Lucky, of course, are both references to Matt Fraction's Hawkeye comics. And then we have the transformed. The transformed chooses 3 moves. So my players will pick the moves of their choices. Okay. And each character is going to have a moment of truth, and that's not going to typically occur in your first game play session. This is something that is going to be much later in the gameplay. You notice the beacon also gets to choose drives. The beacon has 4 things that motivate them. So each playbook is pretty different in their moves and whether or not they have something additional to deal with. Okay, so now we're going to move into my favorite part, which is how our team came together. And so when you are creating masks, you are creating a group of superheroes who have already come together as a team. And so part of the character creation process is determining how your characters met each other, how they teamed up, how they became the team they are today. So these actually get asked in a certain order. And so we will start with our question for our delinquent. And the question for our delinquent is, when our team first came together, we totally broke some major rules to win the fight. What rules did we break, and whose rules were they?
I think a bit of destruction was definitely in there. Like maybe a huge like monument in a city that we destroyed while fighting a criminal. Maybe a shopping mart.
A little bit of fallout for that first team up, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So destruction definitely I think counts as breaking some rules. All right. Our next question is for our transformed. When our team first came together, we drew attention and ire from plenty during the fight. One important person in particular now hates and fears us. Who is it?
I figured it would probably be someone in a person who's in an important position of authority. Maybe like a mayor or a chief of police or something along those lines.
Okay. Anybody want to weigh in on that? Do you have a preference of mayor or chief of police?
I like the idea of chief of police.
Oh, I was actually going to say mayor because that could also kind of like more tightly knit in other
the destruction of some important city mural or a shopping mart.
Okay. Okay, Zoe, so the mayor of Halcyon City. Okay, so you have made an enemy in the office of the mayor. Not always the best person you want to make angry if you're going to be fighting crime in that town. And lastly, Beacon, we found some signs that this incident was just the start of something bigger. What were the signs?
Maybe I found out that criminal we fought was part of a bigger organization or something.
Okay, so fighting a criminal who turned out to be part of a larger organization. You wrecked a shopping mart, maybe took out some nice city monuments in the process, and who, buddy, is the mayor unhappy about it? That is great. So the next part in our character creation process is to go through and start thinking about how our characters relate to each other. I'm going to take us back to the character sheets for a moment here. Each one of the sheets has a section for relationships and influence. And each of the questions and the rules of influence are going to be slightly different depending on the character playbook that you're using. But the relationships are going to be relationships between our player characters. So relationships on the team. So I'd like each of you to go through your relationships and think about how you might, what you might want from each other, what you might have with each other. Because the questions here for our Beacon, blank is awesome, and you take every chance you get to hang out with them. So which one of your teammates is awesome? I guess we probably need some hero names at this point, don't we? Do we have some hero names?
I've got an idea, but it's incredibly cheesy.
Cheese is kind of what we're going for here, though. I think that if we're going to play a good campy superhero game, having a good campy superhero name really, I think, just drives it home. So why not? Go big or go home, Zoe. Technically, I know you're already home. Go big or go small.
All right.
That doesn't really work.
I was thinking the name for my superhero would be Lifeline.
Lifeline. I like it. All right. How about you, Willow?
I was thinking the name Crimson.
Crimson.
Like the color.
Yeah, Crimson, Lifeline. And how about you, Donovan?
My character's name is The Unseen Hand, but he absolutely hates it and is constantly looking for a new one.
That's great. All right, The Unseen Hand. Who of your teammates is awesome and you take every chance you get to hang out with them?
I guess I'll go with Crimson.
Crimson. You've got to prove yourself to blank before you feel like a real hero. What was that?
I guess the only other person.
I mean, it could be the same person.
I'll go with Zoe's character.
Okay, so you're going to go with Lifeline. All right. So, Crimson, you keep trying to impress blank with your antics.
I think I'm gonna go with a Lifeline on that one.
You and blank pulled an awesome, if illegal, stunt together.
I think that would definitely be the Unseen Hand.
For Unseen Hand. And finally, we have Lifeline. Lifeline, blank comforted you when you were at your lowest.
I'd probably put that to Crimson.
And blank knew you before you changed.
I'd put that definitely to the Unseen Hand as someone more, well, normal.
Okay, as someone more normal, definitely the Unseen Hand, big name, human hero. So that brings us to influence. Influence is the power that characters can exact over each other. If you have influence over another character, you can make alterations to their labels, so how they view themselves. So it's a pretty important part of your relationship. Now, because we're playing with a fairly small group today of just 3 players, and our beacon gives influence over himself to 3 of his teammates, everybody gets influence over our beacon. So Willow and Zoe, if you'll mark that you have influence over the Unseen Hand. And now, let me see, our delinquent cares a lot more than she lets on. So your teammates all get influence over you as well. If we had a larger group, it would be only 3, but since we only have a team of 3. And then finally, our transformed tries not to care what other people think, but they can't shut everyone out. So pick one teammate to give influence to.
I think I'll give it to the Unseen Hand.
Okay. So we've gotten our moves, we've gotten our relationships, our influence, our team has come together. The moment of truth, it tends to be much later in gameplay, so we probably will not encounter it in this play session, but you'll notice that each of your characters also has a team move. Team moves are things that you can do when you all come together as a team. And as a group of young heroes, you aren't always perfectly in sync. You aren't always working together in concert. Sometimes you are wanting to go different places, wanting to have different goals. So we have special moves to celebrate when your team works together. So take a moment to familiarize yourself with those. And you'll see that next on the character sheet is potential and then advancement. The thing I really enjoy about masks is you learn through failure. If your character fails on a roll, yes, they do take the effects of the failure of that roll, but they also get to mark a box of potential. And when those boxes are filled up at the end of gameplay, you get to make an advancement, which could be anything from taking another move in your playbook to changing the amount of influence someone has over you, to changing your labels, or even unlocking your moment of truth, which is sort of that big superhero moment that I'm sure you're aware of from every hero comic, movie, or TV show. There's always the big moment in that hero's life, and that is the moment of truth. So we will get to those if they come up, but yeah, so we'll be marking potential as characters either fail to connect in their fight, if they take an injury, if they attempt to comfort someone and aren't particularly comforting, then they will get to mark potential as we go. So that is just about the end of the masks character creation process. So now we're going to move into the introduction. So we'll go character by character. So give us a rundown of what your character looks like, any information about their normal life, if that's something that gets shared with your teammates, a little information about your superhero look if you have one, and we'll just go from there. So let's go ahead and start with our beacon. So introduce us to.
All right, so his costume, right? It's like a normal sort of like assassin, very stealthy getup, but it's been covered with sequins and glitter. Because this guy, okay, backstory wise, right? Parents got killed by assassins when he was a baby, got raised by the assassins, eventually, right, got kicked out because he couldn't do stealth at all. Way too flashy for that. Also, he learned what they did and, took out a few of them. That's a whole other story, right? And so he got the hero name, the Unseen Hand, from them. And so he just hates it because he's not unseen and he doesn't like them, but he can't decide on another one.
Jazz
also,
hands.
Pretty much. And as far as beacon moves go, I got come on lucky, so I get a pet. And I'm going to go with a sparrow, I think.
Cool.
So they get to help me with 3 different kinds of roles that I have to pick.
Very season 2 Umbrella Academy. Good choice there with the sparrow. All right, so that will move us then to we'll do our transformed next. Zoe, why don't you introduce us to our transformed?
My transformed is called Lifeline, but her real name is Marina Morse. She prefers if you just call her Marina. I think she just prefers it over her superhero name. She's a pretty weird looking. She has like a hospital shirt on. She'll say she spends most of her time in the hospital trying to figure out what's going on with her body. And she just has regular black pants on, some comfortable looking boots. But all of her arms and what you can see of pretty much the rest of her body is covered in bandages, and she has this long red scarf wrapped around her neck. She also has like sort of a shorter length, straight black hair, brown eyes. Pretty stereotypical in looks, other than her clothing.
Okay. All right, and lastly, our delinquent.
So Crimson has they have a buzz cut kind of, except it's like also a mohawk at the same time. Their costume is like some like really clunky like combat boots, like a thick kind of choker, like a black t-shirt and like some ripped jeans, as well as some like fingerless gloves with the spikes on the knuckles,
Ooh, edgy.
Yeah. And like in terms of like to cover their face, they have like a bandana that they tie around their head.
Cool. All right, so let's
and a pair of headphones.
Cool. Let's come up with a team name. Do we have a name for our team?
Is there anything that we all particularly share? I mean,
I don't know. We've got escaping from the assassins who raised him. We have bucking authority. We have she's trying not to rot away. Maybe
you guys got living parents.
Do you have living parents?
No.
Oh no.
I mean, I was planning on having living parents, but if that's the theme we're going for.
Parents are dead. That's it. We're here. It's just Batman's all the way
Team
down.
name, The Orphans.
Team name, The Orphans. We good with The Orphans? The Orphans it is.
I'm cool.
Right, everybody.